Chapter 4 Timeline and Sources of History Exploring Society India and Beyond for Class 6th NCERT. Chapter 4 Timeline and Sources of History. Children, today we are going to step into a fascinating area of social science, the study of history, and how we come to know about the past. The chapter is titled Timeline and Sources of History. We often think of history as simply remembering dates or events, but history is really a bridge between the past and the present. Think for a moment about your earliest memory. Maybe it is from when you were 5 or 6 years old. Perhaps your first day at school, a festival you celebrated, or a holiday trip with your family. That memory is a part of your personal past, and it helps you understand who you are today. In the same way, the history of human society helps us understand the present world, because without knowing what happened before, we cannot truly explain what is happening now. The Earth has a very long history, stretching back billions of years, but humans have occupied only a very tiny portion of that time. Modern humans, or Homo sapiens, have lived on Earth for about 300,000 years, which sounds like a lot, but is actually just a blink of an eye compared to the Earth's age of 4.5 billion years. Over this vast stretch of time, many different forms of life have evolved, from simple bacteria to fish, reptiles, birds, mammals, and finally, human beings. When we study history, we focus on that very recent period when humans appeared, developed tools, began farming, created societies, and built civilizations. But how do we measure this enormous span of time? One of the most useful tools for studying history is the timeline. A timeline is a line that shows dates and events in order, helping us see clearly what happened first and what followed. For example, Gautama Buddha was born in about 560 BCE and Jesus Christ much later around 1 CE. By placing both events on a timeline, we can easily understand their sequence. Now let us discuss the terms BCE and CE. Long ago, people in the West used to count years based on the supposed year of the birth of Jesus Christ. Years after this event were marked AD, meaning Anno Domini, or in the year of the Lord, while years before were marked BC, before Christ. Today, to make it more universal, we use CE, Common Era, and BCE, before Common Era. So the year 1947, when India became independent, can be written as 1947 CE, and the year of the Buddha's birth is written as 560 BCE. Remember, there is no year 0. The year 1 BCE is immediately followed by the year 1 CE. That is why, to calculate the time difference between a BCE year and a CE year, we must add them and subtract 1. For example, if you are in 2024 CE and the Buddha was born in 560 BCE, the calculation is 2024 plus 560 minus 1, which equals 2583 years ago. To make things simpler, historians also use terms like centuries and millennia. A century is a period of 100 years. For instance, the 21st century CE started in 2001 and will continue until 2100. A millennium is a period of 1000 years. We are now in the third millennium CE, which began in 2001 and will end in the year 3000. Similarly, centuries and millennia in BCE count backward in time. For example, the 3rd century BCE means the years 300 to 201 BCE. When you mark these on a timeline, it becomes much easier to visualize the flow of time. You can even make your own personal timeline, starting with the year of your birth, adding your parents' and grandparents' years of birth, and then placing important national or world events alongside. This way you can connect your own life to the broader flow of history. But to understand history, we also need sources. How do we know what happened hundreds or thousands of years ago? Imagine if you wanted to write the history of your family. You might ask your parents and grandparents, look at old photographs, diaries, or identity cards, and collect stories that have been passed down. All of these are sources of your family's past. Similarly, historians rely on different kinds of sources to study the past. These can be broadly divided into archaeological sources, literary sources, oral sources, and artistic sources. Archaeological sources include the physical remains left behind by people. Archaeologists dig into the ground to uncover tools, weapons, pottery, toys, ornaments, bones, and even the ruins of buildings. For example, the remains of the Indus Valley civilization, such as seals, bricks, and jewelry, were all discovered through excavation. These remains tell us what kinds of houses people built, what food they ate, what clothes they wore, and even what gods they worshipped. Fossils of animals and humans found deep in layers of rock are also important because they show how life evolved. Literary sources are texts written in the past. These include religious scriptures like Vedas and Itihasas, the Ramayana and Mahabharata, ancient poems and plays, historical chronicles written by court historians, and scientific or technological texts. For example, the writings of Kalidas tell us about the culture of ancient India, while Ashoka's inscriptions carved on pillars tell us about his reign and his teachings of Dhamma. Foreign travelers' accounts are another kind of literary source, as they often described India's culture, trade, and cities from an outsider's point of view. Oral sources are traditions that have been passed down by word of mouth, such as folk tales, songs, and legends. Many communities preserve their past by reciting stories, and even today, folk singers keep history alive through performances. Artistic sources like paintings, sculptures, rock art, and carvings on temples also provide important information. A simple sculpture of a dancing figure tells us about the art, culture, and even fashion of that period. Every object, whether a coin, an old house, or even a cooking pot, is like a clue in a detective story. And historians, like detectives, piece these clues together to form a bigger picture of the past. Different experts help in this task. Geologists study the earth itself, paleontologists study fossils of plants and animals, anthropologists study human societies, while archaeologists dig up remains of the past. Historians collect all this evidence and try to write a clear story. Sometimes sources agree with each other, like two puzzle pieces fitting together. At other times, they may contradict, and then the historian has to carefully judge which is more reliable. In recent years, science has added new tools to history. For example, chemical analysis of excavated materials, climate studies of the past, and even DNA research on ancient human remains have given us fresh insights. Now let us take a look at the life of early humans. Our earliest ancestors lived as hunters and gatherers. They moved in groups, searched for food, hunted animals, and collected fruits and roots. They lived in temporary shelters, caves and rock shelters, and used simple stone tools. Fire was a great discovery for them, giving warmth and protection and allowing them to cook food. Over time, they developed simple ornaments like beads made of shells or animal teeth, and they painted scenes of animals and daily life on cave walls. Slowly, as the climate changed after the last ice age, humans learned to grow crops and domesticate animals. This changed their life completely. Instead of moving constantly, they began to settle in one place, forming villages near rivers where the soil was fertile. They cultivated grains, reared goats and cattle, and shared resources within the community. Pottery was invented to store food, and the use of metals like copper and later iron brought stronger tools and weapons. Villages grew into towns, and this laid the foundation of civilizations. So, children, what do we take away from this chapter? We have learned how to measure time in history using BCE, CE, centuries, and millennia. We understood the importance of timelines in showing the sequence of events. We explored the many sources of history, archaeological remains, inscriptions, literature, oral traditions, and art that together help us reconstruct the past. And finally, we took a glimpse into the life of early humans, from hunters and gatherers to farmers and villagers who set the stage for human civilization. History is like a giant puzzle, and with each piece we discover, we come closer to understanding the long journey of humanity.